Peace and welcome to Oddly Familiar. In this series, we will take a look at everything in video games that's familiar, from soundtracks to audio samples, and even characters. We will cover parodies, tributes, accidents, and even plagiarism. I am not saying these are stolen or ripped off. Each song has its own story behind it. All I am doing is showing songs that may sound familiar. If you were ever playing a game and thought a song sounded familiar, then you came to the right spot. And the good part about this series, it doesn't have to be exact, just familiar in some way. And it's just for fun anyways. But with no further delay, here is episode 1 of Oddly Familiar. First song we are going to talk about is from an old Capcom game. Maybe you have heard of it, Mega Man. This game was released in 1987 and featured a certain boss named Elecman. Now when you compare this to Journey's 1983 song titled Faithfully, you can't help but hear the same melody. Friends. So with all three of these songs sounding so similar, I will give the producer the benefit of the doubt. The next song on our list is from one of my favorite video game mascots, Sonic the Hedgehog. This comes from the Game Gear and Sega Master System version of the game, Bridge Zone. While I couldn't place it right away, I did end up realizing what it is. It's Full House. I was never a Full House fan. However, back then, everyone at least knew the theme song. Fan of the show or not, the theme song was everywhere. A launch title, Pilotwings 64. It was fun and allowed the player to be in a full 3D world. But when flying the Gryocopter, you may have heard this tune. I think everyone has heard this tune before. I usually hear it in arenas or stadiums after the home team wins. Kool and the Gang, Celebration. A very talented group of musicians with many famous songs, Celebration being one of them. While Doom was a great game and full of bullets and blood, the soundtrack was actually pretty good too. The next song on our list comes from Doom 2, and it's called Bye Bye American Pie. It's quite a recognizable tune, maybe not as popular as Kool and the Gang, but this had its time and they were pretty big in the 90s. Alice in Chains, Them Bones. With the game being released in 1994 and the Alice in Chains song coming out just a few years earlier in 1992, one could see how Them Bones comes to mind. Our first Sega Genesis game, and probably the most fun game on the list so far, Sonic the Hedgehog 2. And while it's a fun game, maybe you heard a familiar sounding song once you reached the Metropolis zone. Well, I didn't catch this on my own because I have never heard the original until it was brought to my attention. It sounds a lot like the Hives' Walk Idiot Walk. While the song this sounds like did come out after Sonic, there are rumors that the Hives were actually influenced by Metropolis Zone. Next is a great game, known for its difficulty, but yet loved by many, Ninja Gaiden. And when you hear even the song name, R.E.M, you might already know which song it's going to sound like. Was that the tune you were expecting? Well, that's the Ninja Gaiden version, and if you haven't heard the original in a long ass time, you will still know it sounds like Black Sabbath's Iron Man. This was in the arcade version only, and they ended up taking this song out of the Xbox version because its similarity to Iron Man might lead to legal troubles. Next up is quite a famous game starring Nintendo's poster child, Mario. With the way Nintendo is with copyrights and how they treat YouTube nowadays, you might forget Nintendo has done some dirt too. Let's take a listen to Dr. Mario's Fever theme. Now, anyone who has ever listened to the Beatles might recognize the melody. It's Lady Madonna. The composer, Hirokazu Tanaka, is a known Beatles fan, so I guess it's okay for Nintendo to do to others, but it's not okay for others to do to Nintendo. Another Capcom game on the list, and this one is an all-time classic, Street Fighter II. The song in question is also a classic. Here is Ken's theme. Now, anyone who has ever been on the inside of an arcade may have heard that tune. It's popular, it's good, and it's been in many Street Fighter games. But anyone who has ever watched Top Gun might have heard it as well. At least the intro. Here is Cheap Trick, Mighty Wings. Yoko Shimomura stated that she watched Top Gun before composing this soundtrack. Although she stated she didn't make it sound alike on purpose, the intro does sound familiar. Last but not least, Chrono Trigger. This game has one of the best soundtracks of all time, and usually I tend to agree, until it comes to this song, Robo's Theme. Now you may think this is some kind of sick joke, but I did not just rickroll you. The producers of Chrono Trigger rickrolled you. They thought it would be funny to put this in a game a decade before anyone thought about rickrolling you. Well, it may be a sick joke, but it wasn't me. It's actually in the game. I was gonna end the list there, but I feel a bit bad considering what it was, so instead, I'm going to send you out on top with some Breath of Fire 3 and some Eye of the Tiger. I am R.C.C. Thank you for watching. Peace.